You are listening to the new man beyond the macho jerk and the new age wimp. Your host is men's coach Tripp Lanier.
Can you actually learn how to build confidence and get in the zone where good fortune seems to flow your way? Is being happy or content for losers? And are you creating what you really want, or are you just avoiding failure? Author and Silicon Valley Renaissance man Kamal Ravikant is here to discuss the dangers of being driven by fear, plus a simple practice to build confidence and keep you in the zone.
All right, is this better?
I hear you.
Awesome, man. Hear you too. Nice to hear your voice.
We did it.
You made it happen. You really did. I love your persistence, dude. Whatever you do in life, I am going to support you. That's what it takes.
You know, I'm a coach. I'm cracking the whip for a lot of guys out there. So
is that what you do?
Yeah. So lining up in interviews, cake. You know, getting guys to follow through on building businesses and living dreams is the fun, the real deep digging stuff. So
that's funny.
Yeah.
Funny.
Yeah. How are you?
Thank you for reading the book, by the way, man. That means a lot to me.
Not only that, been I think most of my clients have read it now. My wife loved it.
Wow.
Both of them. So it's been it's been a genuine pleasure to recommend it to others. And most of the guys that I talk to don't like to read. That's why they listen to a podcast. So they don't have to. So it's nice that it's just concise. It gets right in there, and you did a beautiful job. So thank you.
Yes, I wrote the book that I would read.
Yes. Good.
Especially when you're down, you don't want to read complicated stuff. You don't want to read theory. It's like that's the worst thing you can do for yourself.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
Here's what I say. Give me the steps.
Give me the good stuff. I don't have a lot of time for anything else. So
that's it. Yeah.
Right on, man. Well, I want to make sure before we get started, the correct pronunciation of your last name.
Ravikant.
Ravikant. Okay, great. And then I was just going to introduce you. Yeah. I was just going to introduce you as the author of Live Your Truth and Love Yourself Like Your Life Depends On. Is that cool, or you want something else?
Yeah, that's perfect. And I run a venture fund in Silicon Valley. I'm a serial entrepreneur in Silicon Valley since the first .com boom.
Okay.
You can say whatever you want.
Okay. All right. I'll just make some shit up then. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah. You remember how old are you?
40.
All right. So I'm 42. Remember there was this rapper when we were kids, and I forget this line, but I just always remember this line. Ladies love me, girls adore me, even the ones that don't know me. I thought that's like the best bio ever.
That's all you need. Just a few sentences. Who is Kamal?
I mean, it's like, that's what you wish your bio could be. That's it. I mean, as men in the end, that's it.
Well, I mean, yeah, let's get a bigger, broader picture of you. You are in your U.S. Army infantry patch. You had a previous job where you watched a lot of people die. You hiked the Himalayas. You meditated with Tibetan monks, and then and now you're out sweating it out in Silicon Valley. Is that safe to say?
Yeah, but now I'm investing. There's no sweat involved in investing, man. That's what you do when you don't want to work for a living.
Okay. All right. Well,
any VC tells you they work for a living is full of shit.
Okay. Well, let's talk about the practice thing, because where this practice, I love myself. It's a practice that's made a big impact on my life. It's made a big impact on my coaching clients. Obviously, it's helped you a lot. But where were you before? What were you experiencing? Like, what was going on for you that had you land on? Okay, I got to start doing this.
By the way,
paint me
is
that
the
picture.
podcast going, or is it?
We're doing it, man. We're doing it.
We are. Awesome. Okay. All right, I better get on the ball. All right, so ask me that question again.
Where were you? What was going on in your life that would have you arrive at doing this practice? Just paint the picture. You don't have to tell us, give me that, because I'm hearing that things are good now, but I imagine you didn't just hey, you know what? It's a Friday afternoon. I'm going to come up with this cool practice.
Yeah, dude, I was so not the love yourself guy, and I'm still not, but it's like, I didn't believe in that stuff. I didn't believe in happiness. I used to scoff at that. Even the concept of love, I was in the valley, you're just driven and building stuff and how big your exit is. And it was literally when I hit rock bottom, I just everything collapsed, right? And I've noticed that with a lot of successful entrepreneurs, everyone goes through their rock bottom moment, their dark, night in the cave, the whole hero's journey thing. And I got really sick. My company was falling apart. I had all my money into it. A bunch of my friends had put money into it. Everything was falling apart. I had gone through a breakup. One of my best friends died. It was all at the same time. And the doctor was throwing around diagnoses that were very scary. They didn't know. And I was just bedridden. I couldn't go to work. I had to just leave the company and just watch it fall apart and hope that people could take care of it. And I was miserable. I mean, miserable was a good day. I mean, really,
Wow.
miserable. I would have wished for miserable, right? And I mean, I was honestly, I was suicidal, miserable, the works, just locked in my room and
probably not talking about this with other people. This was your own little private little world that you were in.
There you go. When we need to talk most is when we hide the most. It's a classic male thing, right?
Right.
And it was just one morning I woke up and it was just I can't do this anymore. I just can't. This sucks. I refuse. And I staggered over my desk and I have this journal where sometimes I write my thoughts and I just wrote down with my pen. It was I literally almost carved it onto my desk, this vow that I made that I'm done. I'm just done with this. And and I don't know where it came from. I'm gonna love myself. I'm gonna get out of this. I've loved women. I've loved people. I've loved companies. I've loved things. I'm just gonna focus on myself and I'm gonna get better.
Why was it a dirty word before then? I heard you say that you didn't like happiness, you didn't like love. What did that mean to you then? Before then?
It seemed too wishy-washy. It just seemed too Pollyanna, where you do that, but you're not creating great things in life.
So to create great things in life, you had to not be happy?
You almost have to push yourself and work hard and suffer. Yeah, go figure. It's...
No, I bump into this all the time too. It's so silly, but somewhere along the way, we get into this, well, if you want to be happy in life, you got to be miserable, but then you can't really be happy, because then you're settling, or there's some weird, it's just fucked logic, isn't it?
I mean, it really is. And also, I think part of it comes from so say when I was in the army or whatever, it's you push yourself, you're miserable, but you get through it and it's great. And it's awesome. You build a company, it's miserable. You're sleeping under your desk. You have no social life, but then you sell it. It's awesome. It's almost you're working for the outcome, right?
Some big finish line. There's some
big finish line that will solve everything. And then you reach there, you're okay, what do I do now?
Yeah.
Then you find another one, and you find another one. It's the irony in life, right? It's the cliches exist for a reason. It's the journey, not the destination. Classic cliche. Well, all those people who said it, thousands, been saying for thousands of years. There's a reason why they say it.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
I just wonder. I wonder how many guys are out there, because I can't remember which book it was. I think it was Tal Ben-Shahar's one of his books on happiness. But he talks about there's the happiness we get from creating things and going through, we're already at a baseline and we are building up from there. We're getting better and better at something and we're enjoying it, et cetera, et cetera. And then there's the type of happiness that's the drowning principle. It's you take air away from me and I think I'm going to die. And then when you give me that breath again, I'm oh my God, I'm so happy. And somehow we equate that just surviving part as happiness. But all we did was just go down to the bottom and come back to the baseline again. We didn't actually make any progress. And it sounds like that's where it's a cycle that we could get into. We're not really making progress here. We're just depriving ourselves of the things that we really want. And then when we imagine we're going to get them back again, that's where we'll be happy.
Yeah, and I'm actually even thinking, beyond happiness, I think a deeper thing, and I talk about this in the new book, is fulfillment. Because fulfillment is a deeper place. When we do things that fulfill us, or when we live lives that fulfill us, happiness is a natural byproduct. And so are other things.
Mm-hmm.
So rather than focusing, happiness, you can go take drugs. You can jump in a new relationship and have the whole, fun with that. But then that fades, or you can do this new thing and that fades and do this. If you chase that, I think you're chasing just a moving target.
Yeah.
Versus if you really focus on who you are and who you want to be, and work on that and who you want, what you want to create in the world. When I say create, it could be anything. It could be writing, it could be a company, it could be a book, it could be a blog, it could be, your children, whatever.
Right.
Whatever you're creating in the world, you focus on that, it's deeper.
Yeah.
And you find that in people who I found that people who have a great presence around them, that have an inner sense that just radiate happiness, they are doing things that fulfill them. They're living lives that are fulfilling.
I get the sense as we're talking about this happiness is this peak experience. It's something that happens in a moment. We won something, or she said she'd go out with me, or my baby's born, or whatever. And so we don't trust that. It's transient. It's going to come and go. Fulfillment is that thing. It's we're building upon it. It's this foundation. And I think this is where the practice comes in, because what are we building the foundation of our life on?
Yeah. What do we stand for? I mean, if we figured out what we stand for and just decide to live that, life just transforms. This reality just warps itself around us. That's what I discovered for myself was like figure out what I stood for and just like make an obsessive commitment, the same kind of commitment I would do to build a company, but make the commitment to being that version of myself.
And you chose the phrase, I love myself. So let's connect the dots between that. Yeah. I'm going to make this commitment. And the phrase that you use, this mantra that comes across for you is, I love myself. So, connect the dots for that.
I don't know where it came from. It came from inside. It came from a desperation. I honestly, really, there was not a conscious thought. It was me just miserable, striking on my desk and writing that down. And I remember when I finished that, I wrote down, like, I was just going to love myself in a way that was just going to be complete, like truly and deeply in every thought and every action, every moment I was conscious, I was going to focus on that for me. And I remember sitting down after that thinking, what did I just write? But I made a vow, and I made a vow to myself. And a vow to yourself, when it comes from that kind of place, is a very, very special thing. That's where your life transforms. And I instinctively knew that. And so I had to do it.
You felt it. You felt like that was the word. That was the spot. If like it's, we've got a pain in our back, that's going to be the spot that you rub into. It's a little painful, but that's it. That's the one that's tender.
I guess. I mean, I'd made that vow and this came out, and like I had to keep that vow to myself. And I didn't know how to do it. There weren't no books around me. And like, honestly, if there were books with the title Love in it, I would have avoided them.
Well, that's what happened to me. AJ Jacobs sent me your book, sent me this thing. And I remember my first reaction was, it was like, love yourself. I was like, oh, get out of here. And that's when I know I'm onto something, like, oh, check it out. If I have this kind of a reaction, check it out. And I'm really glad that I did, obviously. But I remember that there was a split second, like there's something wrong with this. I grew up in a house, my dad was a cowboy and a cop, and you don't talk about yourself, you don't celebrate your wins, and otherwise it's arrogant or disrespectful. You don't build yourself up or inflate yourself. And I think because of that, we are raised to diminish ourselves or diminish the things that we bring to the table. So it just seems wrong. It seems repulsive. And I guess, how is this different, or how did you start to separate this from narcissism and like self-absorption, which is the fear? I'm going to be seen as self-absorbed and narcissistic.
Sometimes a little self-absorption is a good thing. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, narcissism, I think, people misinterpret that in a society. Narcissism is like posting your photos in your bikini on Twitter. That's narcissism. Loving yourself in a true manner where you start to take care of yourself and allow good things in your life and cut out the negative things in your life. That's not narcissism. That's healthy.
That's being an ally to yourself.
Yeah. I mean, narcissism really is like looking for external validation, right? Loving yourself, truly loving yourself, is for internal validation that comes from just being yourself. Becoming the person and being the person you wish you could be. And you do that by being gentle with yourself. We beat ourselves all the time. I mean, I'm a classic case of that. I'm very hard on myself. And it took something like this to make me just be gentler with myself.
I think that's a harder thing for guys to grasp, is like, if this negative voice was some guy that lived in your world with you, you'd beat his ass. At some point, you'd have to beat his ass. Yeah.
Here's the irony is, life works easier when you get rid of this. I don't think you can get rid of this because the mind is a rat cage. It's a monkey, right?
Yeah.
But you just pay attention to it less. It doesn't carry the same weight anymore because you build in yourself this other pattern, this other way of being that's just gentle, that's softer, that actually looks for the good inside you, looks for the good outside of you. And what you seek is what you get. Whether it's inside or outside. I knew none of this when I did that. Like, I actually remember sitting back thinking, okay, now what do I do? And I just thought of the simplest thing I could do. And I just started repeating myself. I love myself. I love myself. Like in my head, right? And sometimes I'd be in the shower just loud. And then I would start to make myself feel it, like force myself to feel it. And I have a background in science as well. So I know neuroscience pretty well. And I know neuroplasticity and how the brain works. And if you lay down thought pathways, eventually, the neurons that fire together. You ever heard that phrase?
Right.
If you do that, your strongest neural connections happen with emotional experiences. So I just started making myself feel that emotion to myself consistently. I started meditating. I came up with this meditative practice where I'm lazy. I hate to meditate. So it was like a 7-minute meditation where like I did to particular music. So I was anchoring my mind to that meditation so that every time I listen to music, my mind would just go into that space. And I would just imagine light coming and just, I love myself. I love myself. I just tried things. What felt right, I noticed a difference in myself. I kept everything else I threw away. And ended up coming down to 3 things, which, just 3 basic things that I talk about in the book. And it worked. Like, within a few weeks, like my mind was completely different. Within a month, my life was transformed.
You went from slobbering, crawling mess across the floor to write something down to actually feeling more empowered, and it came from more of the inside out than this. Because I think everyone's looking outside. Well, if I have more money, if I have more Facebook likes or more status, whatever, then that's going to be the thing that buoys me up. And you found a way to self-generate.
The problem with the money and the Facebook likes is they do give us that little dopamine release, but the problem is then you crave more. It's a drug. I mean, I look at all that. I equate all those to meth, right? You get a little bit more, you get a little dopamine release, you want more.
Without the weight loss, though. You don't get the weight loss.
Yeah, your teeth fall out.
Yeah.
Whenever you seek an external validation, you will then seek more of it. You will need more of it. You will never reach that point, I've reached, this is it, I've arrived.
Right.
But if you go from within, here's the irony. You go from within, that stuff comes to you.
Well, that's what I wanted to talk about, because, what we're really talking about is a sense of wholeness, right? So the world can be this place that I try to get something to fill me up. Or the world can be a place where I'm here to give, I'm here to contribute. It's an inside out thing. And I think we've all had moments where we're like, well, God, why am I'm just in the zone? Like, girls are looking at me, like work opportunities are coming in, and it seems mysterious. But if you really track it down there, it's not so magical. It's that we've landed in a place, in that sweet spot where we're feeling, we're generating this place. We're in a place of wholeness. And a lot of guys are like, I don't know what happened there. But I think we're onto it here. When we start to generate that, we're always coming back to this place of I'm already okay. I'm already lovable. I love myself. Then we're not grasping for things out in the world. Is that your experience too?
Yeah, and actually, another very important thing I learned, I mean, this is key, is that we just think that, okay, I've learned my lesson, so I'll just be this way. Yeah, that's crap. Like, because our minds, given our ages, we have like so many years, we have decades of our minds being a certain way. We think like learning a lesson, it'll just shift completely. No, it's, the minds have to be trained. You have it's all like this weight of like years of thinking you're going against. It's the same. It's like going to a gym. I love to work out. And so like I kind of took that philosophy of working out. Like if I work out tomorrow and then I don't work for 2 months, my body's going to show it. I do the same thing with the mind. So that's where I came up with that, trying all these things and then just like what worked, making it a practice and doing it day in, day out. So it's like, then my mind showed it. And because my mind showed it, my life showed it.
But you had a visceral experience. You talk about it in the book when you laid out things were good. Oh, well, I don't have to do this anymore. I found the solution.
That's it. I figured it out. Right?
I figured it out. So I'm done. I can just go back to beating the shit out of myself.
Yeah. And, life shows. It's like, I get emails from people all the time. Like a lot of people email me and from who read the books. And it's amazing, like the transformations that they get. And some of them, I keep on telling them, listen, the one key thing is don't slide when things get better. Because trust me, I do it. I still do it. And my life shows. And that reminds me, hey, step up, buddy. I don't know why we're inherently lazy when it comes to taking care of ourselves, but we're great when it comes to beating ourselves up.
Yeah, well, it's this idea that there's exoneration, that life actually is a series of finish lines, and it's not this continuous do the work, get in there and do the work. We really believe that there's going to be exoneration. There's going to be this place where now I can finally relax, and now I can finally have the life that I really want because I took care of all that shit. I was waiting to do this, and now I can finally do it. And it's like, no, it's now. This is it. This is all you got right now.
Life is just do the work. And the thing is, do the work in the internal and the external will just blow your socks off. That's what I've learnd. I've worked so hard. I've worked so many years of working on the external, doing the work in the external. And now doing the work in the internal, the things that I always wanted that weren't happening are happening so easily. It's almost silly.
Yeah.
Like I walk around tickled sometimes. You
Mr. Anti-Happiness and now Mr. Tickles, is that?
Yeah. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I still go through crap, right? I still go through moments of like feeling really down. I went through a really bad breakup at the end of last year, someone I really loved, and it was hard. And you feel these things and you go through them and you come out quicker and you come out better. you know, and because this is something, you know, you just work on shifting the inside. A friend of mine, the best piece of advice I've ever heard was a very wise guy. I've actually have a chapter. I always mention a wise friend in all my books, and it's him actually. Something that he says, and he told me life is from the inside out. I've really come to believe that. Like you work on your inner self, the outer self will just naturally take care of yourself because you will be better. And because you're better, the people around you be better. You know, it's like the whole thing, like you said, you know, when you're feeling a certain way, all of a sudden girls notice it.
Right.
You know, what is it? Like you didn't dress any differently or whatever.
Right.
It's just, you know, and we're all like far more intuitive beings than we are logical beings, right? Well, and so if you're being a certain way, the world around you will respond.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about that because I think that some guys are waiting until they feel confident. They want to be able to go into a scary or risky situation and feel strong or feel sure as they go into it. But I think the mistake is in thinking that confidence comes from feeling certain about an outcome. It comes from a knowing that more of that foundational, that fulfillment place, that wholeness than the outcome itself. And I think it's the knowing that I'll be okay, right? So shit still happens. Even though we're doing this practice, but it sounds like it's helping you, even though shit still comes down the road for you. It helps. Is it helping you become more resilient?
Oh, I mean, I've always been resilient, but what it does is it makes me more open. Like life still works. One thing may be off, but the rest will be just going gangbusters. The whole thing doesn't have to fall apart. That makes any sense?
I don't know if it does. What do you mean?
Like, for example, like when I was going through the breakup, I was like really, you know, I was really hurting. But yet, like I was building a venture fund and people were like throwing themselves to like in front of me to give me money for my fund. And it was a new venture fund, right? Like, it was like, that doesn't happen, right? So like something that I always dreamed of. And all of a sudden, like this little book I written was a huge bestseller. This book sells like a New York, it's self-published and it sells as much as New York Times bestsellers. So all these big external things I've always wanted to be to be an author, blah, 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 just happen so naturally. So one thing may be off, but as long as I'm working myself, other things are happening great. And then you're getting better and you'll get through whatever the painful experience was and you'll be better for it. And then they'll just draw other better things to you, you know, other better people to you. Life doesn't sideline me anymore, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's talk a little bit about kind of the fuel of what drives us. I talked a little bit, you know, with wholeness, that what can be driving me is to, you know, get something, to get somewhere, or to avoid. It could be fear, like fear of failure. That can be what's driving me versus what do I want to create? What do I want to give? What do I want to contribute? You talked about when your business was you were really, you know, struggling with the business and you realized what was driving you.
Yeah.
What was that?
Yeah, this was actually after I did the practice. It kind of like it loosened up my mind a lot. And I really got some great insights of myself. And the best insights are the ones that come from within, not that people tell you, because you can't rationalize them away. And this is when I realized the way I built it, it wasn't that everybody thought I was driven to succeed. It wasn't that I was driven to not fail.
Two different things.
Two opposite things. You will end up with two very different outcomes.
Paint the picture. What is driven to not fail deliver?
Deliver to not fail is you're always saving the day, but you're always having crisis. And that's not sustainable, man. No wonder I got so sick and got worn out and things fell apart. That was like after 3 years of doing that nonstop. But it was like I had no idea that was what was driving me. It was like had to like actually emotionally start taking care of myself from the inside out. And then I realized that was the driving motivation. And that shifted, so my motivation is shifted. And, once you realize this, it's almost like self-knowledge is the first step. And then the second step is actually creating something new. And that just logically happens once you realize it, because you realize I can't be this way anymore.
Right.
So you choose to be different.
Yeah. And so if the old idea was to not fail, what's the new thing? What do you call the new thing?
It's actually, I'm looking at the copy of my new book. It's living my truth. It's like being the best that I can be, being my best self. And trust me, I fail spectacularly.
Failure's now an option. It is before where it wasn't. And that's what has us live small.
Yeah, failure is okay. I fail spectacularly and I just get up and I move forward. maybe I'll beat myself a little bit up, but I'll get up and I'll remind myself, oh yeah, that's part of the process, and get up and step up, step up, step up every day. If you're working at stepping up, a month later, you'll be on top of a mountain.
Yeah. I just love that, because I don't think that guys realize that there's a real difference between being driven not to fail versus, living our truth. So as you say, that they kind of are the same thing, right? But what I've found is that when I'm creating from fear or shame or lack, some kind of scarcity thing, it just seems to breed more of that.
Yeah.
That just more of that shit seems to show up in my life, instead of, being able to say, what is it that I truly want? And let's work on that. But that always takes us into uncertainty, instead of the other path always seems to be about what are the threats. I'm always looking for the threats, and I'm trying to pick them off. But if I focus on what I want, I'm not sure where that path is going to lead.
And that's where all the great things are. I mean, it's like I gave a talk on entrepreneurship once, and I said, to be an entrepreneur, you have to be completely comfortable with uncertainty. And to be great in anything in life, you have to be comfortable with uncertainty. Anything great, anything worth doing involves risk. Love involves risk. Creating a company involves risk. Writing a book, and you name it. Anything like that'll put you on the map for what you want involves risk. Risk to your ego, especially, right? Yeah. What if it doesn't go out the way you plan? And that is actually where we need to keep, especially as men, we need to we're driven to go out and do things. And if we can just realize that feeling, that fear and risk is actually part of the process, you feel it oh, good, I'm on the right path. Step up. Things we do blow our socks off.
Yeah. Well, the picture that I'm getting, there's a flow chart here. If I really drill in and I do this practice, loving myself, love myself, I love myself, that is what has me become more able to take risk. I'm more willing to take risk because I'm already okay.
Yeah.
I'm doing a lot better. Things will come along and I'll get bumped around, but I'm a lot tougher and I'm a lot more capable than I think. But it really is dependent upon that practice and really grounding ourselves in that place. So, and if I'm willing to take risks, then I don't have to play this game of what do I no longer, what am I avoiding? What am I, what failures am I avoiding? I'm able to go for what I really want. Is that the little flow chart you got on your whiteboard right there?
My internal whiteboard. What's interesting is, I think as you do this, you discover that the things you thought you wanted are not necessarily the things you want. You also discover more about what you really want when you just work on yourself from the inside out.
What shifted for you? Like what? Give me an example.
I really thought I was going to go build another company. I was going to go, for all the lessons I'd learned, I was going to go build something great and, have a great exit and all that blah, blah, blah. I realized, no, all I want to do is just help people that I love and work with people I love on my terms when I feel like doing it. And a venture fund was perfect because I get to invest in very, very talented entrepreneurs. And these are all people I care about. And the people who invest in my fund are people who trust my ability to actually invest their money wisely, and they're very excited. So I'm helping them. I'm just the lucky guy in the middle.
Beautiful.
Right? It's perfect. I mean, I can't think of now, I write and I'm actually have publishers approaching me and stuff, and I self-publish because I control my voice. Right? And I can put out to the world exactly what I want to say, be honest, and it's actually really helping people. Right? I go out and advise companies. I get asked to advise and consult all the time. I turn most of them down. Only with things I care about. The money just comes on its own, right? And it's weird. I stopped worrying about money, and it just happens.
Do you think that? Because it sounds like we've got these paths, right? Okay, so I want to feel fulfilled, and from the place of not failing, right? My life is not failing. Like life becomes this Rube Goldberg machine where all these things have to align, and this craziness has to happen, and then at the end of the machine, then I will feel fulfilled because that's ultimately what I want. But it seems like if we just, create from this place of what fulfills me, it's much closer. What I'm hearing and what I've experienced is it's just a lot closer. It doesn't have to go through all this stuff and be dependent upon all these other external factors. But the experience we ultimately want is really, really much closer.
Yeah, start with the outcome and start with the outcome. Imagine that.
But I think a lot of guys, their outcome is the money or the thing, but they haven't brought it back to the experience, which is fulfillment. And
the irony is the money and the things will come if you start from that. They'll come far easier. There'll be far less struggle. There'll be struggle. Like, let's say, no one's banging on my door with a suitcase full of unmarked 20s, right? And then I'm working for it, right? but it's from a very like it's from a very relaxed place. It's like there's no desperate intensity. It's kind of nice.
Imagine that.
Yeah.
Imagine that.
And it's
The
working-
old guy
and it's
that
working-
things have to be suffering and tough. You don't have to.
Dude, that was me. It was like, oh my God, that was so me, you know. And I was so proud of myself, and I was like, there was pride in there. Like, look at what I'm doing, what I'm overcoming, blah blah blah. That's such nonsense.
Yeah.
We can overcome things, but we don't have to make that part of our consciously make that part of our path. It's far better to the things I'm overcoming now. I'm actually are far more fulfilling than say the things I was overcoming before, which I could have actually avoided.
Wow. I wonder if this is because you and I are around the same age. If I don't know if we could have heard this message when we were 22 and young, dumb, and full of cum. I wonder.
I wish someone had given me this book, man. Like, I kid you not, I wrote this. Like, I half the time I write I realize I write because I'm writing to myself as a reminder.
Yeah.
This book, like I wrote, I wish someone had given it to me and just smacked me upside the head, and like until I just started applying it. I really think my life would have been the arc of my life would have been completely different.
I agree. I do agree. This is a challenging pill to swallow for guys. It confronts this whole notion of who we think we are. We're the guy that knows how to suffer and be tough and win and all that kind of shit. It goes right up against all of that and challenges a lot of that. And it's for a little book, it packs a punch, man.
And this is not like namby-pamby, like oversensitive BS. I don't buy a lot of that because I think as men we have to be men. I'm in the Bay Area. There's a lot of like new age stuff here, and some of the men I meet are quite feminine, right? Feminine energy, like right. Mm-hmm. No, as men we have to live the world as men. That's like we have to create things. We have to accomplish things. We have to express ourselves. We have this power to create that's amazing. That build things that the way we think and we put things together. And you can do that from a male, from a very masculine place. So loving yourself is not like feminine, namby-pamby. It's just like it's in fact it's more empowering. I'm more of a man now than I was ever before.
Well, I was going to say this is the real power. This is real power. The other stuff I get is like a childish way of going about. Like I got to show, I got to prove, I got to get external validation from daddy, from mama, the world. And to me, this is like where the real power comes from. And it will require us to get out of that younger mindset.
Yeah, I actually had one of my readers who a really good guy. He was an infantry lieutenant in Iraq, right? And he came back and he gave a talk. He loves the book, and we keep in touch. And he actually gave a talk at West Point, and he said, "What I did was I took your Love Yourself book, but got rid of the words like love, right?" And just took the same principles and gave this talk, and it was a big hit. He's like, because I kind of militarized it,
What's the military version?
I don't know. He said one of these days he'll like record it. I was like, dude, that's great, man. Like, go for it.
I affirm myself. Check. I check and affirm myself.
That's funny. That's funny.
Very cool. Well, Kamal Ravikant, author of Live Your Truth and Love Yourself Like Your Life Depends on It. Thank you so much, man.
Oh, it was my pleasure. Thank you.
There's so much more to The New Man than these interviews. So visit thenewmanpodcast.com and join the mailing list so you never miss another update. Thanks for listening.